All right, quick wrap up of the New Mexico game, and then on to Boise. Another obviously tight, tough loss. Really a good fight. I think there were some things that were super impactful in a bad way for us early in that game. We extended drives, really spotted them 14 points on penalties, inability to key the ball in hard count situations, a couple of pass interference penalties that really kind of gave them points, and that was a hugely impactful part of the first half. I was really pleased with the way that our guys kind of put some drives together late in the first half. Obviously getting a defensive stop with a turnover, putting a score in to cut it to a 2-point game at halftime. And then I think, clearly defensively, we had to play 48 snaps of defense in the first half, and that caught up to us, and that was self-inflicted. And as the game wore on, we just didn't have the same juice. Luckily, we were able to tie some drives together and give our guys a chance to kind of regroup on the sideline. I was pleased with the way our guys played in the red zone, but we gave up too many leaky yards. They scored 10 points in the second half, and that was one of them was after we went for it on fourth down on a short field, but to hold those guys to field goals on 3 red zone trips, including a miss, gave our offense the ball back with plenty of time to go, and just didn't convert to 4th and 7, and that was kind of the ball game. And so not a lot of time, obviously, on a short week to worry about that. We got to push forward. Guys had a day off yesterday. We got Monday practice today, just wrapped that up. And now it's on to a team that is rolling pretty good, specifically on offense right now. I think 4 of the last 5 games, they've scored 40-plus points. They're a really hard team to defend. A big part of that is they've got an experienced group and a physical group at O-line and tight end, but they also kind of have these 3 backs that are all home run hitters, man. All of these kids are capable of taking it the distance. A lot of their explosive plays in recent games have come in the run game. And then obviously that sets up for the play action shots, which is a big part of their game. Experienced quarterback. And now, like I said, they've got a lot of momentum, positive momentum right now on the offensive side of the ball. On defense up front, 90 and 5 are 2 really good defensive linemen. Both their will linebackers, 41 and 43, are very active. And then 53 is kind of the quarterback of the defense. Mike linebacker that does a good job of getting these guys lined up, and he's efficient. And then in the back end, they've got a kid that's already got 2 pick sixes in number 7. Special teams, number 8, who was a 2 or 3 year starter at Fresno State, who's kind of their 3rd running back, gets his opportunities on kickoff return and punt return, and he's definitely aggressive and has excellent speed. So this will be a big test, and I think it's going to be a game where we have to do kind of what we did at New Mexico. We have to create some momentum for ourselves with some turnovers. We've got to eliminate some of the penalties that gave them momentum. And then we've got to play clean by taking care of the football, which is this last week. Hopefully this is now a new trend. First game where we haven't turned the ball over all year. And obviously that allowed us to play a 4-quarter game, and that's kind of what we're built to do. And so with that being said, I'm happy to take any questions.
With it being homecoming week, is it a little bit more fire under the butt this upcoming practices and everything like that for the boys?
Yeah, I don't know that homecoming has maybe the same cachet that it does at the high school level, although I do think that there's some cool things that are taking place this week. Our tight ends coach, Virgil Green's going in the Hall of Fame, as is the 2010 team. Ironically, that was a night game that was played famously in Mackay Stadium 15 years ago. And that was, it's an opportunity to kind of celebrate that group. I think anytime you play a good team like Boise, you want to level up your play, but that starts with preparation. And so I think having good energy in practice and good focus is a part of that. And I think that, the homecoming aspect of it is certainly a part of that. But I think there's also this, hey, we're honoring this, one of the greatest teams to play at Nevada. And we've got an opportunity to have a national stage. That's a big part of it, is playing on Friday night, and the nation's going to be watching. And so let's make sure that we put a product out there that we can all be proud of.
Carter, I guess, where did you see the most improvement from his first start to his second start?
I think he's had a lot more poise. I feel like the whole week of when you go through a week of preparation as a quarterback, it's very different when maybe you have packages or you're the backup versus when you're the guy. And, as I mentioned last week, I kind of knew it was going to be a tough first outing for him against San Diego State, just because of the talent level that they have on the defense. This team was more of a zone team. I think he really owned the game plan. He did a great job of getting the ball out of his hands fast, hit the open spots, used his legs when appropriate, and I just thought a lot of, guys getting more confidence around him. Guys like Dakota and Marshawn stepping up and playing, leveling up their performance to support him. And that really didn't happen, and for a variety of reasons. Maybe it was the air coming out of the balloon after them getting up 14 points with 3.3 minutes in the game. But, he's poised, and he just did a really good job of operating and taking what was available.
What did you guys see on that fourth down play when you reviewed it? Was there an opportunity for him to run there?
Yeah, I think you saw the same thing I did. Yeah, I think a year from now, there's a couple of things, you can see. He is a very capable runner, but he's not physically developed quite yet, so he's going to run through some leg tackles or arm tackles that maybe occurred in that game. And I think he's also going to recognize, they're playing two-man. There's nobody in the middle of the field. I got to get 7. Let's go get it. Get 8.5, get down. We're at the 35-yard line. That's field goal range for us. And so, there's an opportunity to learn and grow from that experience. But, even the throw gave us a chance. It was the only place the ball could be thrown into tight coverage. It was low and away. He wasn't putting the ball at risk. It was going to be a great catch if it was made. But it was just, even that aspect of it, sure, I'd like to see him take off and get to first with his feet. But he did give us a chance in that situation.
And he threw into a lot of tight windows really accurately. I mean, did you see the decision-making quicker in this game than against San Diego?
He sees the field pretty well, and he does get the ball out of his hands, and he's decisive. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but certainly there were some things that maybe he learned from by holding the ball on some deeper shots against San Diego State that, hey, I got to get this thing in there quicker if I'm going to be able to fit it into that window, and he did.
You mentioned the wide receivers. Marshawn had as many catches in that game as his entire career leading up to that. Why is he having this breakthrough? A touchdown a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe that confidence at the end of the San Diego State game to get his first collegiate touchdown reception. He's got a lot of ability. He had a great spring and then broke his foot the very first workout of the summer. So he missed the entire summer and a part of fall camp. And it's just taken him a while to kind of get into the flow and the groove. And then with Jordan down and Marcus down, it is kind of what it is, all right? You got to step up, bro. Let's go. And he did, and so I was proud of that, and I can see his confidence starting to grow from that experience. And Dakota has really kind of worked himself into that. He's been having some pretty solid practices for a while.
Marcus hasn't played the last couple of games. What's he dealing with? Is that something that's long-term?
Yeah, it's really out of an abundance of caution, just making sure that everything's correct. And there's, not to get into the details of the injury, but he's been practicing, but he hasn't been fully cleared by our medical staff yet. And so that's kind of a wait and see. Hopefully early this week we'll get a thumbs up on him.
And then you guys had Logan out for this season. I guess what was he dealing with? And is there a chance that he has a chance to come back next year, or is that too early to
I think
tell?
that's totally, the medical things always are interesting, right? That's a process that you go through with the NCAA and our medical team, and so that'll be something that he'll work through that process as he goes through getting himself back into playing shape.
You look at the run game, 115 rushing yards the last 2 games. Is that just a result of the quarterback change, and Chuba's obviously very electric in that area, or is there something tactically that's kind of?
I think it is a combination. When you go into it, and a lot of what you're doing is predicated on the +1 aspect of your run game, because that does stress the remainder of the defense. And so identity-wise, you're a little bit different. But I think, even in that game, you could see Carter's effective. He may not be going to, break tackles and do some of those things, but he's very effective in that aspect. And so we've got to continue to lean into that, because that's kind of the DNA that we had going into the season in the run game. And I do think that there's some things that have, we played a couple pretty good D lines, and we're going to play another one on Saturday night. But we've got to find a way to be, I don't know if we're going to be completely balanced, but to have more balance in our offense, because that takes pressure off of a young quarterback. And so that's definitely been a message.
Looking at Boise State, this could be the last game between the teams. I know there's nothing on the non-conference schedule. Is that of interest to you to continue this rivalry past this year as they move into the Pac-12?
Yeah, by and large, those decisions are made above my pay grade. Certainly, I think it's, going all the way back to the Big Sky days. This has been a great rivalry. I can remember from my time there, we were always going to have wars with Nevada, and that was a big part of kind of the fabric of the regionality of the old WAC, the Big Sky, and even the Mountain West until very recently. And so I think it's something we'll definitely look at. You schedule those non-conference games are scheduled a ways out, so at the very least, this is going to be the last opportunity to play these guys in a while. And so I think that'll be again something my hope is that we get this thing squared away and we stop splitting football on the West Coast, because I think it's bad for football on the West Coast. And not just what's going on with the Mountain West and the Pac-12, but also the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the ACC, for that matter, with Stanford and Cal. So, like I said, those are decisions that are made above my pay grade, but hopefully we can figure out a way to continue to have some of these great regional rivalries.
I mean, if Stephanie were to go to you and be like, do you want Boise State on the schedule moving forward, I guess what would your response to her be?
I'd say yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that makes a lot more sense than us going to, Middle Tennessee next year or flying all the way to Pennsylvania. I mean, I want to play, even our bye games, I want to play them more regionally because I think the travel is hard. I mean, it took us a bit to recover from that long trip to Pennsylvania. And I just think in general, college football's always been a regional sport, and I know we've become more national because of the way things have played out. But I think those regional rivalries still matter. Look at the SEC. I mean, Tennessee, Alabama was a big game, right? Like those things matter.
Condolences on the passing of Doug Martin. I know that's the one you recruited and coached. I guess what will you remember about, coaching him and just being around him?
Yeah, I mean, he, I don't know, his family, his mom, Leslie, dad, Doug, they were phenomenal people. He was probably one of the first really high-profile recruits that I was the primary on. I got to spend a lot of time with him and his mom and dad. I got to spend a lot of time with Tony Franks, his high school coach at St. Mary's. Just unbelievable people. Doug's spirit, like from the second he walked in our locker room, just his energy and his positivity and his smile, and then obviously his physical gifts. I mean, was a pretty unique and special young man, and definitely have him and his family in my thoughts. And one of the reasons you do this is because, for me anyway, is because of relationships. And I think that in a weird way, Doug's passing. Yesterday we were in a group chat with a bunch of guys from Boise and, guys that maybe we hadn't connected with in a while. And so, I mean, I think that's the power of Doug even now is he's brought people back together. And so, I tell our guys all the time, I tell them, like, the older you get, the more you need the people that knew you when you were young, before life beat you up and you got a new knee or you went through some tough times with your family. And that's the beauty of this, man. That locker room's a brotherhood that lasts forever. And to lean into that, even don't wait for something tragic to happen to reach out to people that you care about. And so, R.I.P. Doug, man. What a phenomenal kid and what a phenomenal player.
He had 300-yard games against Nevada, including that 2010 game. I guess just as a runner, what do you remember most about him?
Just violent, man. He was so physical, such a strong, a runner, but just great instincts. Like, this guy was more than a running back. I mean, he started for us. I can't remember what year it was. We're playing Oregon at home, and we had a pretty loaded backfield with Ian Johnson and Jeremy Avery and DJ Harper, and he was kind of a true freshman trying to find what his niche was. He started at nickel linebacker for us in that game. He was one of the best gunners and kickoff cover guys in the country. So he was just a great football player. I think that was, I remember watching him live when I went and watched him play live during a bye week, and St. Mary's was playing Lincoln. So it was kind of a rivalry game. Doug never came off the field. He was the best linebacker on the field. He was the best running back on the field. He was the best kickoff returner on the field. He was the best gunner on the field. Like, it was just like, this guy's the best football player I might have ever seen. And on my Mount Rushmore of football players, he's on that. Him, Troy Anderson, Dante Fowler Jr., like guys that can play any position. I'm not talking about running back or D lineman. I'm talking about like a guy that could do just about anything you get him to do on the football field.
You guys are pretty big underdogs going to Boise last year, and you kept that game competitive and close. Is there anything learned from that game or a template you can use to try and keep this one close?
I think every game takes on a life of its own. I think some of it depends on, hey, what are we doing well in the moment? What are they doing well? How can we adjust and mitigate that? We've got to keep their offense off the field as much as possible, and that's hard when you got a talented defense. And so I think that's an area where I've got to do a really good job of managing the game. That's my job. And they've got to do a really good job our players need to do a really good job of executing the plan. And some of that is not turning the ball over, not extending drives with penalties.
How does the week of preparation change with the game being basically a day earlier?
Really just compress the schedule. So usually we bring them in on Sunday and do some things, and then we have a practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, light practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are heavy days, Thursday's our day off. Friday we have a practice and then we play on Saturday. Well, this week we just kind of move everything up. So today was our Monday, tomorrow's our Tuesday, Wednesday's our Wednesday, Thursday's going to actually be our Friday practice, and then we compete. So we just kind of cut that bonus day out and then move forward.
Last presser you were mentioning just the activities that are happening this week. Can you walk us through what's happening Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Yeah. So Thursday night is the Hall of Fame reception, inducting the 2010 team and Virgil, and that's going to be a great thing. I think it's at the GSR, correct? And then so that'll be a celebration that night. We've got homecoming activities and other competitions. I think there's some softball games and volleyball, soccer, and then Friday, obviously for us, the game is a big deal. And then on Saturday night, we're going to have an event called Legendary Night that's going to honor Coach Alt and also a lot of these guys from the 2010 team. But kind of some people said, I said it's more of a toast to Coach Alt. Let some guys get up and tell their favorite stories about him and what he's meant to this program, and also lean into helping us to raise a few bucks for RevShare. And I think that's something that the longer you're in this league and you kind of see, okay, first time I'd been to Albuquerque since 2002 when I was coaching at Utah State, and to see some of the investments that they've made to enhance their football experience there. I think that's the thing that I see is I want to say this, like, first of all, I give President Sandoval and Stephanie Remp a ton of credit for them leaning into what we need to do to be more competitive in football. And obviously there's a testament to that right out the door here with the construction of the indoor, and that was a huge lift primarily by ASUN to make that happen and be a legacy project for all the students here at Nevada. But we've got a ways to go. We've got a ways to go, and I think that's what we're in the process of doing. We're behind, but we're making strides because the leadership recognizes the importance of this program. And I think that's what we've got to do, is we've got to continue to lean into that. And a big part of that is the economic reality of paying players. And the RevShare piece is a vital part of that as well. And I think we've stepped up with commitments from our leadership to make us a lot more competitive in that area starting in January. But we're still playing from behind in that space. And so, that it doesn't happen without their leadership and their vision. And I'm very appreciative of that. And I think that's going to be one of the things that helps drive us forward. If it's not important to the people at the top of the pyramid, it's not going to be important to anybody else. And I know it's important to President Sandoval and Stephanie and to our university community. So I'm excited about that. I mean, I think there's some cool things, like if you were at the last home game. I mean, I know that, we kind of took the air out of the balloon with our performance in the first quarter, but man, Bill McGillis and his team have enhanced our game day environment, a new intro. We've got pyrotechnics. I mean, people are starting to understand what we've got to do to move the needle in football. And I think it's just a matter of time before those investments and that energy and effort into those things start to pay dividends on the field.
You mentioned over the years when you were at Boise State, kind of that perspective of what you thought about Nevada. Now that you've been here the last couple of years, what's something that the 2025 team can learn about that 2010 team at Nevada?
Find a way to find a way. I mean, I think I've told this story a lot, man. I mean, we were number 3 in the country. Ohio State, I think, had lost earlier in that day. We were going to be the only undefeated team in the country if we were able to just handle our business in Reno. We walked into that locker room up 24-7, and we thought we had it. But Coach Alt and his boys had a different idea. And I thought that was just like a testament to the toughness and that never say die mentality that was really kind of emblematic of his teams. And, we're going to lean into that. Hopefully we can wake up some echoes. And, maybe some of those guys would be nice if they'd suit up. But and Virg probably still has a couple snaps in him. But that's, that was a great night for Nevada football without a doubt. And it'll be fun to celebrate that team.
In your estimation, why has Boise State been so good at the G5 level over the past, 20, 30 years?
Well, I think it comes down to this. When you invest in something, usually you get a return on your investment, right? And it's a pretty unique story. I think it goes back to Gene Blameyer. Gene Blameyer says, hey, what do we need to do to make football relevant? We want to move up to Division I. We're playing FCS football. Well, they put a blue turf in, right? And so that created energy, that created excitement, that, they've made some really good coaching hires. They've consistently leveled up facilities, coaching pay, RevShare, NIL, whatever it took to be competitive at the highest level. They said that's what's important, and we're going to invest in that. And that has elevated the entire athletic department, right? I mean, it's not just specific to one thing. And so I think that if you want to point to one thing, and point to the 2010 moment, where both teams, that was a high water mark for both teams, right? And from that point on, the Boise made a decision. We are going to be good in football. And all you got to do, and then they didn't stop, right? They're building a new end zone complex right now. And so I think that's something that, is very true about this sport in particular. In order to have success, you have to be able to compete with your contemporaries in a level playing field. And then it comes down to, hey, matchups and coaching and all those other things. But I think football's always been important in Boise. And, I've said this a couple of times, my goal is to try to turn Reno into a football town again, make it important here again. And I'm 100,000% committed to doing that. And while it's discouraging, some of the things that have happened to us in terms of the wins and losses, I think the progress is real and tangible. And I feel the investment in the infrastructure of this organization, whether that's the investments we've made in the training room, the nutrition for our players. I talked about game day, revenue sharing, obviously the indoor complex. All of those things are moving this thing in the right direction, right? But we are playing catch up to a certain degree. And so I feel like the push from the leadership to understand what we need to do to be competitive is there. And now it's on me to build a better roster and go out and find a way to get, one more score in the majority of the games that we play.
I just want to ask about Virgil real quick. What do you remember about him as a player, and what has he meant to your staff?
Yeah, I think from a player standpoint, he was a guy, obviously he was primarily involved in the run game. He didn't get a lot of targets, but once a game, they were going to run that slice play, and he was going to leak up the middle of the field, and he was probably going to have an impactful catch in a really important moment in the game. But I just remember his toughness. The guy played on every special team. The guy was physical as heck. I mean, when they were running G-scheme, he was going to come down on that D end, and he was going to set an edge. And he just, the mentality that he brought and the physicality that he played with obviously carried him over into his NFL career. And what he brings to us that maybe is overlooked or not really understood, it's not just his understanding of the mindset that it takes to be good and to play this game at a really high level, which is unique. It's also the love that he has for this place and what the platform that it afforded him and his desire to give back to the young men in this program and our community. I mean, the Green Foundation is active in all kinds of, community service activities, whether that's Night of Stars or going to elementary schools or whatever, and he drives that. He models that so our kids know how important it is to give back. And then I see him talking to guys like Charles Brown, who's, getting ready to be done with his football journey. Well, he's leaning into a guy who had to go through that and struggle with that. What's the next step for me? And the care and the compassion that he shows with those guys and the advice that he gives them, but really the love that he shows for them. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that he brings.
You've already kind of mentioned it, but can you talk about the new indoor facility a little bit and how it will change the way your team will train and prepare? And then what do you hope with facilities like this, how do you think Nevada will be able to compete with bigger programs?
Yeah, I think, number one, more than just the brick and mortar and the advantages with inclement weather, off-season training, smoke if there's fires, I think it sends a message to the kids we're recruiting and the competition that Nevada's serious about being good, right? You can't just say, hey, we love Nevada, and, you gotta, the proof's in the pudding, right? And so sometimes you gotta put your money where your mouth is, and so I think the competitive advantages that it provides for all of our student athletes, but also the opportunity for intramural sports, community engagement. It's a game changer. This community needs something like that. I mean, it's a community of 300,000 plus people, and got to go all the way down to the sports dome to get anything done. And I think there's just tons of things that it's going to be beneficial for within our community, within our campus community, but our community at large, outside of the advantages that it's going to provide in training for our student athletes, okay? But I think the biggest message that it sends to help us be more competitive is that, hey, they're serious, that they're actually doing something, and that matters a lot. And I think for us to be able to compete at the highest level, it's candidly, there's, I've said this before, this is a heavy lift, there's a lot of holes in the dike when I got here, right? And kind of one by one, you kind of systematically go, okay, what's the biggest issue? Well, number one thing is always student athlete safety and welfare. So you start with basic needs. Hey, let's get a better nutrition program. All right, let's give these guys a better training environment. Let's make sure that their health is taken care of by, having the best team docs that we can have and upgrading our facility in the training room, right? Our academic support staff, which we've totally revamped, and those people are rock stars. Like, the infrastructure is being built out now that had not been there for a while, and that benefits not just us in football, that benefits our girls in the soccer team, that benefits softball, that benefits tennis, that benefits skiing, that benefits men's and women's basketball. Go down the list, right? And then some facility upgrades, keeping good people, right? And that's no longer just talking about how do you retain your best offensive line coach or how do you retain this person. It's also about how do you retain your best players, and there's an economic reality to that too. And so it's not any one thing in particular, it's everything in general. Excellence doesn't come in a vacuum, right? Excellence is something that is lived and breathed every day, and that's throughout the entire department and university, and I know that's an expectation that our president has. Seeing me, important, sir.
What do you hope your players take away from this when they see the university investing in them like
Yeah,
this?
I think that it helps them to understand that their hard work and their sacrifice matters and is appreciated. You know, at the end of the day, these kids put so much of themselves into this, and it's hard when you don't get the payday on Saturday or this week Friday night. You know, those are things that can tear you apart emotionally. But if you know that you're supported, you know that there's people there that have your back and that we're working every day to improve, then you can wake up and you can go do it again. When it gets defeating is when it's like, well, you know, they don't really care about this. So that's not the case here. You know, we have some work to do. There's no question about that. There's no excuses, no explanations. Let's go to work. But we have now a commitment from people that I think is going to put us in position to be competitive in the future that maybe hasn't been present in the recent past within the football program.